Badlands National Park in South Dakota is one of the most magical places that you can camp. It's amazing to be at Badlands after everybody else has gone home. That's when it gets really cool. So today I want to talk you through your camping options in Badlands National Park and offer some advice and tips for my favorite places to stay as well. My name is Ash. I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes, and I have camped in Badlands plenty of times. We actually love camping there, either in the park or just outside of it, and I want to talk to you about your options today so that you can set yourself up perfectly for exploring Badlands National Park. So Badlands has two front country campgrounds. These are campgrounds that you can drive to, and that's what I'm going to focus on in this video. I'm not talking about your backcountry options. If you want to hike and camp, if you want to do any multi-day hiking while backpacking, I'm not covering that in this video. We're just talking about the front country campgrounds that you can drive to. So here are a few things that you'll want to know before we jump in. The first being that each campsite can have 6 people, 2 vehicles. You can stay for 14 days. Something you'll want to keep in mind as you're camping in Badlands is that there are no fires allowed. So you can have like a camp stove, but there are no fire pits. You can't burn wood, nothing like that. So don't plan on having a traditional campfire while you're camping in Badlands, because you are in an area that's prone to wildfires. So no fires allowed. The other thing that a lot of people don't think about when camping in Badlands is that this national park has very little shade. And so especially during the summer months, if you're going to camp in the park, you need to expect to have no shade. It's going to get really hot in the middle of the day, especially. One of the campgrounds does have kind of a shade structure, but it's not super helpful in my opinion. And so just know that while you're camping here, you are going to be out in the open with very little shade and very hot temperatures in the summer. One more thing that you might be wondering about, one of the campgrounds is more developed, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but it does have some electric hookups. So if you are in a travel trailer or an RV and you want to be able to run your air conditioning, then you can do that if you get one of those sites, which really does make a huge difference, again, in the middle of the summer. And then the other thing is there are pay showers at that campground as well. So again, we'll talk about that, but just to answer that question right off the bat, you do have a couple of extra amenity options in Badlands National Park that sometimes you can't find in other national parks. So that's nice. You can have a little bit nicer setup to keep you out of the elements. Okay, so jumping into the map of Badlands National Park, let me show you where these campgrounds are and kind of some of the defining features of them. So the first and main campground that I was just talking about with the extra amenities is the Cedar Campground. It is right down here by the Park Lodge, the Visitor Center. You've got like the Notch Trail and some famous hiking trails up in here. You are pretty much right along this Badlands Loop Road from there, and so it's really easy to get to a lot of the famous overlooks and the main things that you're going to want to do in the park. So you can see, here's our campground right here. And this is the campground that I mentioned that has more amenities. So it does have flush toilets, running water. It has a shade structure over your picnic table. Again, no fire pits because no fire is allowed. And then the pay showers are in a nearby building. So you do have more options here. And again, you're right next to the lodge. You're right next to the visitor center, and so you're right there if you need anything else. You know, if you want to go into the restaurant at the lodge or something like that, it's just a few steps away from the Cedar Campground. So pretty much everybody who camps in Badlands, usually they're talking about this campground, the Cedar Pass. Again, this one is closer to most of the can't miss things that you're going to want to do. This one is also reservable, so you do need to make a reservation to stay here, and it's typically open from about April through October. The other campground in Badlands National Park is all the way over here. It's the Sage Creek Campground, and this one is pretty far removed from most of the things. Your main stretch of things to do is going to be this Badlands Loop Road right here. And so when you drive down the Sage Creek Rim Road, this is a dirt road. It's narrow. It's not as good for larger vehicles. And so the Sage Creek Campground doesn't allow anything over 18 feet. It has no running water, just pit toilets. Again, no fires, nothing like that. No amenities really to speak of except for just, a place to camp. The Sage Creek Campground is first come, first serve, and it is also free. So you'll just show up and pick a spot, and hopefully there's availability. It doesn't fill. It's not, a lot of people don't want to camp somewhere with so few amenities, and so it doesn't fill as fast as the Cedar Pass Campground. But it is first come, first serve. Then that leads me into how do you actually get a campsite if you want to camp in Badlands National Park. So as I mentioned, the Sage Creek Campground is first come, first serve, no reservations. So you'll just show up. You'll want to show up in the morning because it does sometimes fill as the day goes on. There's only about 22 campsites here, so it's not a huge campground. And it is free again, so that makes it pretty attractive. The limiting factor is the size of your equipment. So you can't bring in bigger trailers, nothing longer than 18 feet. So just keep that in mind. The exception to that is horse trailers. This is a popular horse campground, and so just keep that in mind as well. Now I actually want to take a minute and show you how to get a reservation at the Cedar Pass Campground because that's likely where you're going to want to camp. So I love this campground as far as location and just being in Badlands close to the things I want to do after everybody else has left. It's pretty magical. This campground, though, has kind of a funky layout, and I want to show you some things to look for when you're trying to choose a site to reserve. And so let's jump over to recreation.gov where you make these reservations, and I'll walk you through the process. Okay, so we're here at recreation.gov, and I'm going to put in Badlands National Park, jumping to camping in the Cedar Pass Campground. All right, so it is pretty cool to be among these views and to be able to stay for sunset and stargazing. It's really, really pretty. This campground isn't like super competitive. It's not like some of the other parks where you have to be here exactly when everything opens up to get something, but it's just good practice to do that. I'll kind of show you around here. So let's say we want to go in July. We're going on a summer trip here. We'll stay for a couple of nights. So as I mentioned, you can see that there is a good amount of availability still for these dates, even though they've been released for a little while. Again, it's not super, super competitive, but what is competitive? So as we start getting down a little lower, you'll see some of these are reserved all the way through. The ones that are going to get reserved up the fastest are the RV sites that have electric hookups. So keep that in mind. If you do want one of those sites, you're going to want to get on here as soon as possible. Okay, so then the next thing you're going to want to do is put in some filters. Again, this is if you want the electric site, you're going to want to filter those out. About a third of them have the electricity hookup. If you don't care, if that's not important to you, if you're going to be in a tent, then you can filter out those electric sites if you want and just do non-electric. So let's put that in, and then I am going to put in my trailer length here so that I can narrow it down a little bit more. But you put in whatever applies to your situation. Okay, so there's a couple available up here on top. You can see these ones. I'm not going to go for the wheelchair accessible because I don't need that one. I like to keep those ones open for people who actually need them. I could do this one, but you'll see those electric sites are the ones that are pretty much reserved up for those dates. So let's jump over to this one. Okay, so this one has an electricity hookup. There's the RV length, that's fine. One thing you'll always want to do is come down here to the bottom and read about the site. Make sure that there's nothing down here that's going to give you pause before you book this site. This looks fine for me, but what I want to also point out is looking at this picture. So this is a roadside site, and most of the sites in Badlands are like this. And so it's kind of funky. It's different than a lot of national parks. But basically, the road is right here. And so you'll have people driving past right there. And then there's just a little pullout for you for your site. And sometimes, depending on the site, you'll have like your pullout right here. And then this other person will be either like really close to you in the front or the back. So it almost feels like you don't really get very much privacy. Not my favorite. Oh, that's not even a better picture. But anyway, so you'll want to watch that because that is pretty much how these campsites are. And the earlier you can get on here to reserve, the better, so that you can possibly get a better site that's not so tight or that has a longer driveway so that you're not front to back with the person next to you. Okay, so let's take a look at one more. This one had availability for my dates. Just see what it says. Okay, so this one is a much longer RV length, 55 feet. It has the electricity hookup. None of the sites have water hookups or sewer hookups. It's just electricity. And you can see it's a bigger pullout. You do maybe have a little bit more space between you and your neighbors. I'm just going to come down here and see if there's anything to give me pause. So again, this says road parking. That's how most of them are. You're just right off the road. People will be driving past you right here all the time, and your trailer will be right there. If we come back here and take off the electric site, let's do a non-electric and take a look at some of this. And there is plenty of availability for these ones. So you can see this one can fit an RV. It just doesn't have the electricity hookup. And then it will tell you what kind of tent size you can have here. Mostly either right here or down here at the bottom. So this doesn't give us that much information. It is still that road parking. So again, you're just kind of pulling off and you're putting your tent in the grass right there. You have your little shade structure. This is very common at Badlands. This is what you can expect for pretty much all of the campsites here. Okay, so again, kind of a weird setup. I remember the first time we went camping in Badlands and I was like, ooh, I don't know if I like this. I don't like being so close to my neighbors. I don't like being so close to the road where you're just kind of pulling off as much as you can and then having people drive by your rig all the time. So the setup's not ideal, but again, like it makes it really cool to be in the park after everybody else has left. They do ranger programs, they do stargazing stuff. The sunsets out here are gorgeous. And so it just gives you a different experience in Badlands to be able to camp here. And I do think it's worth it, even though the campsites are a little weird. I want to show you one last thing here at Dirt in My Shoes, which is my website. I have a full article about camping and what you can expect at each campground. And then I also have this link to Campendium that's going to show you your other options in the area. And so I actually really like this website, but there is a lot of dispersed camping around Badlands. My favorite ones being these ones right here, where you're kind of in between the city of Wall and the park entrance, which is right here. And so if you click on these, this nomad view is really cool. You can see people just love it. You're just right outside of the park. It's free. There's no amenities, nothing, but that's a really great option. And then there's another one right here too. So both of these are really good options as well. If you're okay with boondocking and you just want to be close to the park, you don't need all the amenities. That's an awesome option too. Okay, so now you're ready to make a decision about where you want to camp at Badlands National Park. And I also want to say, a lot of people don't just go to Badlands when they're in this area. Most people will also go over to Mount Rushmore and Custer State Park. There's a lot of other really cool things you can do in this area of South Dakota. And so if that's you and you want a little bit of additional help navigating this entire area and knowing, how many nights should I stay in each place? How should I split up my lodging? How should I make sure my schedule will get me to everywhere I want to go during the time that I have? Then you'll want to get my South Dakota itinerary. This itinerary covers exactly what I would do if you have several days in the Rapid City area. I will cover Badlands National Park, but I'll also get you to Mount Rushmore, Custer State Park, Wind Cave, all of the things that are right around there. And so you can get this, and as you can see, we'll make sure you get to all of the cool stuff. And I'll also help you with your lodging setup and just making sure you are perfectly set up to get to everything you want to see. I hope that you have an amazing trip to Badlands National Park. I have other videos about Badlands that you can also watch if you're looking for other things to do, and I have a full trip planning video here as well. So be sure to watch those, and don't forget to get some dirt in your shoes.